like about Rooted School Indy. It's at my church, which is very convenient. They have teachers here that are very helpful, especially with tutoring hours. They help you get your grades up. I enjoy the activities they have here, such as clubs. They have independent rooms that you could do activities in. They have the gym, and they have basketball after school and stuff like that.
It's more like a community, like, and a family, because we all try to help each other grow.
Rooted School is an amazing school. It has so many opportunities. There's just so much you can do, especially in our young high school careers. What we're doing now, especially with tech and just our regular classes, it's just completely different from anything I've ever seen.
They help us focus on our future and what we can and will become, and that they are focused on each and every student as much as they can, which is a lot, and they are a very helpful group of people here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maya Lands, and I'm the Executive Director and School Leader for Rooted School Indianapolis at Eastern Star Church. We are a high school with a mission to provide students personal pathways to financial freedom by increasing the number of students who graduate from high school, college, or technical school ready to compete in the city's high-growth, high-wage industry, starting with the tech sector. This evening, we are excited to bring to you our last series of our Women in Tech to celebrate women's history, powered by the Indianapolis Recorder. We have three awesome IT leaders here with us. We have Chandria Seaton. She's the program manager for Elite, a new hire program targeting new and experienced hires entering IT at Eli Lilly. She has over 20 years of experience leading IT and business projects for multiple Fortune 500 companies, including 3M, IBM, Anthem, and Lilly. Chandria is an award-winning project and program manager recognized as a finalist for 2 consecutive years for the coveted Lilly CIO Awards. Welcome, Chandria. Next, we have Rupal Thanawala, is Managing Director of Strategy and Digital Consulting Firm for Trident Systems and Tech Editor for the Indianapolis Recorder. She has over 20 years of experience in leading global business transformation projects in Fortune 500 companies and leading diversity, inclusion, and corporate responsibility for big consulting firms. She has a deep passion for her community and serves on several community boards. Welcome. And last but not least, we have Decatur Webster. She is the Information Technology Manager of Clinical Operations at Eli Lilly and Company and is responsible for managing a global team of professionals tasked with digitizing, standardizing, and automating clinical systems and processes. With over 20 years of IT experience, Decatur has demonstrated success in leveraging technology to enable influence and drive business outcomes. Good evening. So excited to be on here with you all this evening, and just especially excited to be on here with two of my sorority sisters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Chandria and Decatur. Yeah. So I'm gonna just jump right in. Thank you, ladies, for taking the time this evening to be with us. Can you all talk to me? And we'll start with you, Rupal. Can you please tell me a little bit about your background and your personal path to a career in technology?
First of all, thanks for having me, and hello to all the audience who are listening on this Facebook Live. Um, I started my journey not even thinking that I even want to be an engineer because I really didn't have any role models in my life, nor that there was really any desire for me to even get into the tech sector. But while I was in my high school years, I spoke to some of my girlfriends and they wanted to go for engineering. And I said, okay, I can do that also. And not really knowing where I'm going, where I'm heading. And sure enough, I started taking more science courses. And then I was the first girl in my college to even get admitted for elite program for biomedical engineering. So here I am. And from there, I have most of the time worked in consulting firms, consulting on various large global implementations.
Thank you, Andrea.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be amazing. I know it is. So for me, you know, actually growing up and from grade school to probably middle school, really had a strong passion in math and science. But I didn't think about necessarily at that time a career in technology. In fact, for quite some time, I thought I was going to become an anesthesiologist. And let my mother tell it. Actually, when I was younger, I always said I wanted to work at Shoney's and do hair. So, so shout out to all of those stylists, those owners. Hats off to you. But what actually piqued my interest in a career in technology was my big cousin. She also attended Florida A&M University, one of the best HBCUs out there. And so she used to talk to me about, a career in technology, and I thought about it and, really took an interest in taking that step to a degree in computer information sciences. And so, but even at that time, I didn't realize all of the possibilities that a career in technology would bring. So, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you. Decatur.
Well, greetings and thank you for having me, may I? And I am just thrilled to share this space with these amazing women. But like Chandria, my quest to IT was a bit of a rocky roller coaster. I started out saying I was going to go to the Air Force because I actually liked their uniforms. And then I thought that I would be a gynecologist. And that didn't work. After looking at what all it took, I was just like, I don't want to do that. I think what led me to IT was I am very inquisitive. Anybody who knows me knows I like to talk and I like questions and I like to kind of get to the root of things. And so as I was expressing my interest with my career counselor, they was like, you know what? You would be good in IT. And I was like, why? And they was like, IT provides the answers to every question, every problem. And so I was like, yeah, I want to be that. I want to be the answer. And so it kind of led me onto this path of IT because I always wanted to, if I didn't have the answer, I know how to find the answer. And if the answer was not available, I just create it. So that's why I landed in IT, the endless possibilities and the different things that you can create. And innovation is at its best in IT.
Thank you all so much. I always enjoy hearing people's stories into tech because usually it's never just a direct pathway, right? People are like, someone may have introduced me to it, or they found out at their school some type of way. So thank you all for talking about your pathways into tech. So I wanted to go to you, Rupal, and talk about a little bit about your experience. So as of 2018, women only hold 25% of tech jobs. You have held several roles in diversity and inclusion in CSR and Fortune 500 companies. What tactics and initiatives have you employed to increase the number of women in tech roles in those companies?
That's a wonderful question because 30 years back when I got into tech industry, I thought we didn't have enough women, but the numbers and the needle has not moved still that much even after 30 years. So in my role as diversity and inclusion leader, particularly for hiring and retaining practices, what we used to do is, first of all, companies have to be very intentional about what they want to do. It's not just about hiring. It's about how are we changing the culture such that our employees, and particularly minority employees, feel respected, valued, and being heard. They should see themselves being here with the company for their entire career, or at least for a long time, as much as they want to be. So creating that culture is very critical. It has to come from top down approach. That means senior leadership have to have commitment to make embrace this change, because otherwise it does not happen. Secondly, they have to, once they come inside, they have to see people like them being successful, being able to grow, and then also being able to show the pathway as how they can be there one day also. So it is an entire journey. They should be able to map it out for themselves. And I think those are the things that is really important. I also used to make it a point that we want to have relationship, particularly with the students, when you're recruiting from the college students, or mentoring high school students. We have to have individuals like women, minority employees, go and speak to them and make them comfortable so that they can build the relationship. We mostly used to bring them as an interns, and such that they really know that this is the company I want to work for, and build a trust based relationship, such that uh, it's not that they want to work for us. We really want to build a relationship that we want to hire you. I think if that kind of a positive experience, if we can create for our students, and then once they come inside the organizations, then building that relationship such that they have the mentors and coaches and sponsors inside the organization, then that is the best way to recruit and retain, and then promote them inside the organization.
Thank you. So along those lines, Chandria, Rupal talked about being very intentional, engaging in that culture. And so as program manager for Elite at Eli Lilly, you are charged with guiding new hires in your organization. So can you tell us a little bit about how you work to engage and support and inspire women in those programs to be successful in their tech careers?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. So the past 5 to 7 years, I've been pretty intentional about mentoring, in particular, young ladies that are coming in as early career professionals. But most recently, I've had the opportunity to basically take that passion, and it is actually my job to help guide and expose our early career professionals to the world of IT at Lilly. And it is an amazing job. I can absolutely say I love it. And so how do I do that? Well, through our elite program, we get an opportunity to expose them to all aspects of information technology within Lilly. They get exposure to our senior leaders, our most senior leaders, our vice presidents. In fact, just this week, we had our latest cohort, 25. So we've had 25 cohorts come through this program. And they had an opportunity this week to be introduced to 7 of our VPs. And so that early exposure is really key in your career. And coming in, think about when you started, maybe starting out in your first career, coming in, and there is a learning curve, right? You don't have the relationships built yet, right? And for me, even I think about coming in at Lilly, we didn't have Elite when I first came in. And so thinking about the exposure that they're getting, it is phenomenal. And it is a way to accelerate their career. It helps them along their career path, to get those connections early on with our VPs. And it helps to break down those barriers. And so I know you specifically asked about women. But I mean, of course, the program is for anybody that's coming in as an early career professional. But specifically for me, as I'm mentoring some of the women that are coming through, I am challenging them and encouraging them to be bold. Again, I think back to when I first started in my career. I probably wasn't as bold as I needed to be. And I want to see them be bolder than I was. And so through Elite in this program, I'm absolutely going to be able to do that and see tremendous growth in those that come through the program. So I am super excited, and just think that, for companies that don't necessarily have a program like this, they absolutely should get one, because it's an amazing program.
Maya, we cannot speak. We don't hear you.
Yeah, can you repeat what you just said because we can't hear you?
Every single time I'm like, not in 2021, you're not on mute, but here I am again, talking on mute. So, so speaking of specifically, like Chandria said, we're talking about women, but Decatur, like you manage a diverse global team. So, what challenges have you faced being a woman leader in the tech industry?
Great question. The very first challenge is there's not a lot of women in leadership, whether that's global or whether that's local. And so it gets lonely the higher you go up. And so when you talk about IT or any other company and you talk about the relationships, a lot of times you're forced then to kind of build relationships in an already embedded network. And so when you come in as a woman, you already have to find your place. And then you're looking for another woman who can kind of either mentor you or help you. And that's not to say that men can't mentor you, but when you come into a new space, it's always good to see someone either to look like you or kind of knows kind of what some of the issues that you may have faced just kind of getting in there. Also, I find the difference in cultures also play a big role as it relates to managing global teams. You think about the different cultures and the respect level, or maybe just the way things are done between the genders, men and women. So when you're fighting to speak, you have to be mindful that you're not bringing off like you're aggressive or you're the know-it-all. You kind of have to be you hypersensitive. That's what I'm looking for. Hypersensitive as it relates to how you're speaking. And then it's also like you have to vouch for your idea or whatever you're coming up with to be accepted. Because a lot of times women have trouble driving that influence on that different ends of the spectrum because you're trying to be sensitive, but then if you're too sensitive, you're not seen as a strong leader. But if you're overly strong, you're just way too aggressive. So as a woman, trying to balance that. And then on a real level, as a mother and as a wife, when you talk about a global team and you being on the phone at 9, 10, 11 o'clock and just kind of balancing the time difference, that can also play a big factor. Again, given the number of roles that you play in your home, that could be something that you have to balance and manage very closely. And so as a woman, when you're trying to have that discussion with other men, they're like, oh yeah, suck it up. We'll meet you at 10:30 p.m. And so sometimes that can be a challenge. So you have to be mindful when you're leading a global team, you're a woman, there's not a lot there. You still have to do the same work, drive the same influence and strategy, and still be seen. So not just heard, but being seen. And sometimes the way you're seen plays a big difference into how you continue to progress in your career.
Wow, that was a lot. So it made me think of just like as a woman, like all of the barriers that we face, right? And so, and this question is for all of you. Also, thinking of those barriers, what type of skills can schools provide, especially like starting young in high school, like us here at Rooted, for students to help prepare them, right, for all of those differences that you talked about, whether it's one just like working with different cultures or understanding how to drive influence or building relationships. So what type of skills are necessary and how can we help support our students now to build those skills?
I'll start with that one because two things come to mind. Actually, right now, tonight is perfect to basically say, organizations like CLD, having students go through CLD absolutely helps to prepare them in terms of shaping kind of what they're thinking about and how they want to grow and develop. And then organizations like BDPA help to provide the tech skills early on, front end, back end development, and certainly opportunities for them to work as a team to create a solution, a real live solution, and compete for scholarships and rub shoulders with senior executives of not just for example, Lilly, but other companies as well. And so, those two organizations in particular, and then there's others too, but taking advantage of the resources that are out there, like CLD, like BDPA, getting involved and seizing those opportunities to connect. In fact, we have a couple of early career professionals that they started in BDPA like at 7th grade, and now they are full-time employees at Eli Lilly, for example. They've had internships. So that was a path for them to grow and develop their technical skills. And then also a way for them to get exposure to companies like Lilly and others as well. So I definitely highly recommend getting involved in CLD and, of course, BDPA Indianapolis as well.
Yeah, and I can kind of add to that, Chandria. A lot of times in schools, there are schools and universities, if we're talking to a university audience, there are times when you're able to select electives. And many times we go to what's popular, what's fun. I'll do cooking, I'll do hair, I'll go doing all those things. Well, you can maximize your opportunities in either of those institutions by taking electives in IT or any other STEM related field. A lot of times I don't think we think early enough. Many times we wait till the end of the high school year to start trying to figure out which path we want to go. But if we maximize those opportunities that we have, within our high school career, some of that decision making will be a lot better and we'll be able to make them a lot sooner. But as far as some of the skills that we often hear in the technical field, as far as barriers, we hear, oh, she's not technical enough, or he's not technical enough. They can't see the big picture, not able to think outside the box, not able to connect the dots. Oh, they're not strategic enough. So when you're hearing those things, the best thing to do is to try to find some of those classes, some of those opportunities that allow you to analyze, take advantage of programming competitions, hackathons. If they don't have them, create them. Pursue opportunities to lead, because that's another thing, that's another gap. A lot of folks, they come in, they want to be individual contributors. Start off leading in high school and it won't be a problem when you get to your career. So understanding what a big picture looks like, what's the strategy? So not just thinking about the present time, but evolving that thought or that idea 3 to 5 years down the road. You can start by trying to plan a career map or your 3 to 5 year long-term goals. Start with something small like that and look at the different projects or the different classes that you're taking. See, how is this going to progress? How can I progress this past its current point into 3 to 5 years in the future? It's those types of thinkers that are well established once they get into their careers. And you can start as early as high school.
Sure. So I think these two ladies made great suggestions. I would just add a couple of things. First is, a lot of individuals do not have soft skills, so they come up with a lot of technical skills, but the soft skills. So I would say get on the stage as much as you can. Speak. Having speaking. To practice more and more speaking, because once you go into the workplace, you have to have an ability to present your ideas to your teams and interact. Nowadays in the virtual world where we are, how are you able to present your ideas in a concise and effective manner across the platforms, like virtual platforms like this, or even if it could be you may have an opportunity to speak in a bigger audience, but then it is very powerful skills that you can hone besides having technical skills. Another thing I would say is, networking. I think a lot of minorities to professionals or students I see that they are very shy and timid about approaching people, and as I just heard that be part of CLD or BDP type of organizations where you do have exposure to senior leaders from our industry. Learn from them how to interact with them, how to even address, respond to the single email, and how do you build that relationship. That goes a long way, because once you join the workforce, these etiquettes that you have developed over the years, makes a very good impression. And I want to add one more thing, and that is, please take up some internships or some projects while you're in high school also. You can take advantages of all these things, like Ascend Indiana has started a new program, and Matt, I'm sure you are aware of it, and you can talk to the students about that program. And of course, many companies around in Indianapolis, they do provide internships for high school students also. But then I recently see so many young high school students creating their own projects, building an app, or creating some tech solutions for, so we are looking for problem solvers. We are looking for people who are problem solvers and who take initiatives, and one who can communicate effectively. These kind of things will go a long way.
Thank you. So we have a question, but before we get to that question, so this will be like a two-part question. I want to stay along those lines that you talked about. You all are talking about exposure. And Decatur, you touched on this a little bit. You said take time to maximize those opportunities and electives in STEM, right, in technology. But we oftentimes hear, especially with girls, like, well, all they think of IT, right, or STEM is like is coding, right? And we know that it's more than that. So can you all talk a little bit about the gamut that IT runs, right? So it's not just coding, and how students can get exposed and understand that you don't just have to sit at a computer and code. And then we'll go into this next question of this. Ms. Dickerson talks about what about now the younger students and not just the high school students. So we'll start with the first one.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Please, you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, because this is one of my favorite subject that I like to talk about, because I want to admit publicly that I do not know how to do code anymore. So I want to just say that loud. I did coding in earlier first few years of my career, but now I don't do it. So one of the things, then I want to burst that bubble, that if you want to be in tech industry, then you have to know coding. I would say yes, there's a lot of value in learning coding, but that does not mean once you get into those jobs, you are always doing coding. Like I myself have taken a path of sales and marketing and a leadership role where I never do any coding. We need a lot of people with the creativity. There is today afternoon I was talking to somebody. There's a whole new industry of just content creation. Those are the different things that a lot of people don't even think about. It's tech, but it is tech, and you don't need coding. So I'll let my other two friends elaborate on this one. But yes, you absolutely can have a variety of jobs even without knowing coding. So if you know it, it's great. But even if you don't like it and if you don't have it, we have space for you.
And great, Chandra, if you don't mind, I'll go next.
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to add to what Rupal said. I too started out coding, but I don't code anymore. But that doesn't mean that I don't use code to solve problems. I have a degree in computer science from North Carolina A&T State University from Greensboro, North Carolina, and we did a lot of coding in our classwork, and of course, I was recruited based on, my accomplishments there in coding classes. I came to Eli Lilly and Company. I coded there first few years, but I can honestly say it's the thought process that computer science taught me that has carried me through, not the coding itself, because coding languages, there are many, it's plentiful. And a lot of times when, as an IT recruiter, because I'm also an IT recruiter, when you mention IT, the first thing is, I don't want to code. No, I don't want to code. Well, you don't have to code. We need the dreamers, the thinkers, the hackers, the ones who can debug. We need the writers, the one who can take a concept and double click it down so that both a business person can read it as well as an IT person can read it. We have companies that will hire you for coding, but there's so many that will hire you for so many other fields. You have project management. Yes, that's a certification, but if you want to manage an IT project, kind of understand what that coding will look like, understanding what the development of the code looks like, what the test plan, the traceability metrics, what the success criteria is, all those things play into an account, but that doesn't mean that you're sitting there coding. And so I think we've gotten or IT has become so commercialized to where we think there's only specific companies that do specific jobs that involve IT. Today, everything involves IT. From the time you get up and pick up your phone, the TV, the ATM, the medical equipment, the paintbrushes even now have motorized things inside of them. So no matter where you turn, IT is a part of it. That does not mean that you have to code. That just means somebody else coded. They still need you. Yeah, they still need people to test these inventions, because IT just doesn't build something and it goes to production and voila, it's out to consumers. They need an audience who's able to test and bridge some of the gaps, find the defects. All of those things are part of IT, so you don't have to necessarily code. However, you do have to have a coding mindset, because what it grants you is it allows you to analyze a specific data point and it produce facts, and facts drive the gamut. Facts can drive a dashboard, facts can drive a decision. So that's what that IT mindset does. It would allow you to take something simple and be able to see past it to influence, drive, strategize, and come up with the next invention.
Yeah, absolutely. You both hit it for the most part. Again, if you haven't heard, you don't have to code, okay? You do not have to code. The possibilities within IT are endless. And, like Decatur alluded to, somebody tell me if there is any industry that is not powered by IT. Can you tell me? No, you can't. So what that means is, the opportunities are there, and it is imperative that we have a diverse population coming in, whether, in terms of gender, in terms of race, because we want to make sure any of the biases that are could be in systems it's removed, right? And how do we do that? We do that by ensuring there's a diverse population of folks that are skilled and coming into various IT careers. So that's really all I had to add, because you two ladies nailed it. Y'all nailed that one.
Yeah, I love that comment from Ariel. She said, yes, you do not need to code. I think the more we say it, the more that the young ladies and people will understand, because that's all that they think about. So I tell my students here all the time, it's not just coding, right? You do not need to code to be in the IT field. So along those lines, since we're talking about students, and Chandria, you stated that any industry is powered by IT. And so can you talk a little bit, Chandria, about then how can we leverage mentorships and partnerships in Indianapolis to really inspire and increase young girls and women to pursue tech careers? Because because everything that they do is powered by IT in some type of way.
Yeah. That's a great question. And something that before the pandemic, in fact, we in BDPA Indianapolis, as a board, we were talking actually about opportunities and going into some of the schools to basically, if you remember back to when we used to have like career day, right? And, going in and you would see and hear people talk about their careers. And how many of you remember hearing anybody talk about, their IT career, right? And if they did they look like any of the panelists that you see, right? So I think part of the responsibility that we have as IT professionals, one is, reaching back and going into the schools, and now that may mean virtually for the time being in this new norm. But essentially, we have a responsibility to expose students to what IT professionals look like, right? And we can redefine that, because no longer is it necessarily a majority white male, right? Absolutely, that is not the norm anymore. It's still heavily male dominated, but there are so many more women in tech, but we need so many more. And so, in terms of partnerships and mentorships, we as IT professionals, we have to make sure we are reaching back in order to mentor those that are coming behind us, encouraging, even thinking about as a mom, me making sure I'm not, showing any bias to my son versus my daughter in terms of, oh, let her play with the doll, but I'm gonna let him play with, some Tinker toys or whatever that would encourage some of the skill sets that would be beneficial in IT, right? So I think it even starts at home in shaping and reshaping and redefining what we allow our girls what we expose them to. And we shouldn't limit what we expose them to. It should be, math, more science, and even also the things that they may like. Let's point out the technology behind it, right? So we consume a lot of technology. And our kids, they're playing on their phone or their tablets or their devices. How can we, and it's simple, right? How can we expose them to, okay, so that device that you're playing on, right? You can actually create, X, Y, and Z. You can, and it's, yes, there's a financial gain from it, but, there's so much more to when you are learning instead of just consuming it, right? And so I think so it's that, starting at home. And then secondly, in terms of mentorships and partnerships, again, I go back to several organizations that are within the city that we can connect to, right? There's, of course, BDPA. I know, Maya, you guys are doing some stuff at Rooted in terms of, trying to ensure proper exposure to technology, right? It's endless possibilities. But I would say, for any students that are listening right now, don't be afraid to delve into a career or exposing yourself to technology classes, right? I think Decatur alluded to this earlier, don't shy away from that, because those opportunities will create a lifelong journey that will be very, very rewarding. And so, again, the various organizations that are out there in terms of BDPA, CLD, of course, Rooted, and I can even name some more, put some more in the chat here. But yeah, again, when we think about our sphere of influence in terms of the students that we may know, whether family members or friends, let's do our part first and encourage them to take on coding classes, or not coding classes, but other IT skills, right? So project management, I'm a certified project manager, and there's so many different aspects in terms of how you can lead a project, right? And I think, from a student perspective, if they could even take some of the early skill sets of project management and cultivate those, that'll be beneficial in corporate America as well. So it's just endless possibilities, I'm just going to say. And so again, we are all here, all of us as panelists, we are open to, offering ourselves as mentors virtually, right? That's another thing I think about the pandemic. It's created so many opportunities. And what has powered that? Technology, right? So let's leverage it. And you can connect with each of us on LinkedIn as well and ask us any additional questions too.
Thank you. And along those lines, Rupal, you had talked about how you all engage students at the college level. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then what that could look like at the high school level as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are lots of other organizations also. I would just want to add to what Chandria was just talking, So there's a Tech Point Youth Foundation. I do program at IUPUI. There's so many, first of all, programs where, they actually have a student and a industry leaders, programming to just interact. But then I would say that there are so many other organizations virtually nowadays, at least, create platforms like what you have created, and most of them are nowadays free. So I would say that students can uh, just listen to, be part of it. Like I have been really glued to something called Clubhouse. Okay. And on the Clubhouse, I've been actually learning about what are the new softwares coming up, and I've been actually very successful in making a relationship, another virtual way of being developing your network is through LinkedIn also. I know IVIT also. I know Ariel is on in the room also. IVIT also had so many programs till last year where there were days or women in high tech. These are the organizations. They actually have almost free or free events for students, and that individuals like me and Chandria and Decatur and all of us go out and talk to students also. And at the same time, these organizations also offer up themselves to come and talk to the students also. So whenever you want, and once the time is better, we all want to come and we can talk about, we can help, like all these organizations do it, is how to build your resume, how to do your interview skills, how to um, present yourself, like I remember I was actually at a CLD once, and they were showing students how to even do a shake hand, and so there are so many skills that these organizations are offering, and so many companies are also offering. So I would say take advantage of that.
Thank
Like
you so much.
example, I'll give you, so Tech Point Foundation for Youth, they have actually free I would say, sorry, they give out free kit if there's an all girls robotics team, and they actually train teachers also, so they want to encourage students for robotics, and at the same time they also have interactions with professionals.
Thank you both for those resources. Um, Decatur, so you talked a little bit earlier about how you attended North Carolina A&T, and I know Chandria attended FAMU, Florida A&M University, both historically Black colleges. Even though they both weren't TSU, Tennessee State University, but
HBCU love.
it's all HBCU love. So attending, and Chandra, you can answer this too, but Decatur, first, attending an HBCU, how did that increase your support or your goal in pursuing a career in technology?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. And I say that's a loaded question because it truly was a rewarding experience, not just from an academic perspective, but it was amazing to see that I was pursuing a career, yet I was being educated on my history as an African American.
Mhm.
And, it wasn't just you going into class and we're talking about coding and C++ and all the different coding languages, but it was also that you had those African American histories where you were required to take those classes. And in those classes, you were learning about the inventions. So when you talk about math and science
Yeah.
for a group of faculty and staff who had the passion and excitement about the history of how science and technology has evolved many times at the hands of people that look like me. I can't even put the experience in words. It's more so rewarding to see that it is possible because we've had different lessons and not all the time have the lessons lined up as it relates to who the thinkers and movers and shakers were as it relates to things that were created. So to be in an environment where it's okay to learn about, African American history and the major contributions that not one but multiple individuals have was just phenomenal. I went to a school where in the school of technology, we had just figures on our wall where we were able to go and see, the astronaut and see, the one who made this and made that. And it was just empowering to see. You didn't have to think it. A lot of times we talk about dreaming it and thinking it. No, you were able to see it. You were able to feel it. And you were in those classes empowered, like, oh, that I can do that. So we've often have told, it'll be too hard to be too hard. Well, we've done hard things before. It's been proven. So now that excuse is out the door. And to be in an environment where you have that push to say, no, you can't stop here. This pit stop is not for you to rest. You need to keep going. Yeah, you might have had a C in that class. The next time you're gonna get a B. So it was like they wanted to see me succeed in this because they understood the gap that currently exists in IT, in engineering, in the STEM related fields. I would say that even sitting there in the classroom and hearing about STEM, I remember very vividly it came to me. When you think about a flower, there's roots in the ground that will serve as foundation. And then at the top, there's a flower. But you don't get the flower unless you have the stem. And as I thought about that, I want to be the one that connects what was founded before me and the petals and the rose being what could evolve from the stem. And so as I think about STEM and its power and its ability to drive and innovate, change, at the HBCU, it was very clear that it was not only their job, but it was their passion, and that passion trickled down to me as well.
Yeah, and
I can hear it. I can hear it.
yeah, in addition to that, I just going to Florida A&M, which is on the highest of seven hills, just nurturing beyond anything you can imagine, but also, challenging in a good way, right? And part of the motto is excellence with caring. And absolutely, they cared about us succeeding. We were not just, a number or any of that. It was, my family away from home. And so I think that was absolutely important in helping me to be okay with, taking risks and trying different things and being okay with failing, right? Because everything we do, we're not going to always, succeed at it, but it's how we learn from when we may have a failure, right? So I just really appreciate my experience at FAMU, and I just love the fact that just the HBCU love experience, because I think it has absolutely prepared us well for what we've experienced in corporate America, right? You think about, some of the negatives in terms of waiting in line, trying to get, all your financial resources. But it's those things that you persevere through those things, and that helps you handling conflict, in corporate America, right? And so, and those are real experiences. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world by any means. So I am so thankful for my FAMU education, absolutely. And of course, it's great to see that our first VP is HBCU grad, right? So, if there's, people question, well, do we still need HBCUs? Absolutely. Absolutely we do.
Amen. Yes, we do. And I know, in Chandria, what really resonated with me was like that ability for people to have that safe space to be able to like take risks and fail, right? And that's oftentimes, sometimes, especially as women, right? Like in certain careers, like we're not able to do that. So I appreciate you highlighting that. And Rupal, I know you didn't go to HBCU. However, could you just talk a little bit about what experiences that you had that allowed you to, or whether it was a person or an experience that supported your goal in pursuing a career in technology?
Absolutely. But I'm so blessed to be surrounded with all these HBCU sisters, So I almost feel that I experienced that. I think my experience was very different. And I definitely want to say that when you are surrounded by the people who look like you and people who have same experiences, it just prepares you for the challenges in a very different way. Because I had a very different experience. I went to a school where there were only 10 girls. So just from that experience, I can say, and you are under constant pressure to just not only do good in the class, but basically it's a outperform the guys in the class. It was a very different dynamics we used to have in the school. But then at the same time, I also like some of the fighting spirit I have. Probably it comes from there. So I want to keep my answers short because I know we have some tight timeline and you have some questions coming from audience, right?
Yes, we do. I think those are just more comments up there. So someone said it's good to learn in the form the premium of being a strong communicator in tech that is woefully deficient in this industry historically. Can you all talk a little bit about that? Does anyone want to talk a little bit about that? Being a strong communicator?
Yeah, go ahead because I already spoke about that one. Please.
Yeah, so it is absolutely important to be, and I think Decatur even alluded to this when she spoke a little bit earlier, but being able to articulate your thoughts, and generally when you think about being a strong communicator, sometimes there can be some challenges in terms of people's perception, right? And so I know in particular, I've had a coworker before say, wow, you speak well, you're very articulate, right? And why wouldn't I be, right? Because I'm educated, and so of course I'm gonna speak very well, and it's important to be very clear in your thought process, and I think part of having that coding mindset helps you to be able to kind of break things down, but then also try to be concise with kind of your thoughts. So, I agree that, being a strong communicator is absolutely important. And typically, like you said, I think Lawanza, historically, I guess that hasn't necessarily been the case. So I don't know if there's any more that either of you want to say about that, but I think it's absolutely important to be able to speak up, especially when you have a seat at the table, to speak up for yourself, but mainly speaking up for others, and be strong in that.
Yeah, I would just agree with that. But I think, simply put, as far as the value of strong communication, the clearer your question is, the better the solution is. And many times we'll create a solution, but it's not to the problem that we're trying to solve. So it's key to understand what is the exact question that I'm asking, because any solution is not going to solve that question. You got to make sure that you articulate the right question so that you can get the right answer. I.e., when you go to the doctor, you got to make sure that you tell the doctor what's exactly wrong, because he can prescribe you medication, but if the medication does not address what the issue is, all you have is medication. You don't have therapy, or you don't have you don't have healing or whatever. So I think it's going to be clear, just like in any other industry. In IT, you better be clear as it relates to what you're trying to build, because you can create something that doesn't address the gap that you were hoping to address.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, something I thought about as you were talking, Decatur. So many of you may be familiar with the term of being agile, right? And so when you think about that, part of, as you go along and as you are understanding clearly what the requirements are, you are iterating, right? And so you don't necessarily get to the end and then, say, hey, okay, is this what you want, right? So as you go along, you're acting in a more agile way, so that you can quickly address if there are any miscommunications in terms of what the requirements are.
Thank you. Listen, that's a good transition, because it's almost time to go. And as Decatur said, as she talked earlier, when you're thinking about women, they don't think about when people have kids and we have right. So
Not on a panel discussion.
so that's a good segue into my last question is for you all. What are you all most proud of in your career?
So I guess I can go first. In my career, I am most proud that I got a seat at the table. And not only did I secure a seat at the table, but I came ready to listen, ready to learn with my hand reaching back. So I'm not just at the table, but I'm also bringing somebody with me, bringing somebodies with me. And so when I look at my success, I can complete a project, I can be rewarded this and that. But if I have not done something to bring someone else along, I have not done the thing that's core to me. And that is motivating, empowering, inspiring others. And so my most proudest moment is I get to do this every day because I have a seat at the table and I have the opportunity to change somebody's career as well as their lives by coaching and mentoring them for the better.
Yeah, and I think, I would say I'm most proud of the challenges and the experiences that I had, such that I've achieved what I have achieved, and that I'm able to be a role model to younger women and the people who have otherwise don't have this opportunity. So, being a first generation college grad from my family, I can see that what impact I have made, just not only within my immediate family, but so many women in the culture where I came from, where women didn't even go to the college. So now I am able to be their role model. I was a trailblazer, so I have been through an experiences, but I'm glad that they don't have to go through the same experiences that I had to go through, but then able to lead them to the place where they want to be.
Yeah. And so for me, really quickly, I am most proud of learning how to give myself grace and give others grace, being vulnerable and transparent, because I think all of those things absolutely matter. As a woman in tech, there's plenty of times when you may feel like you are out on an island by yourself. But you're not, right? And so I think it's important that we share that and open up about that, because that helps us to continue progressing, and that minimizes the barriers that others may face or perceive that they may have. So I think those really help to connect others and help them to accelerate their career by us sharing our stories. So that's what I'm most proud of at the moment. You're on mute.
All the hand motion. No, I'm saying I thank you all for that, because like all of you all talked about your gifts and how you're giving back, or your contribution, not necessarily like because I reached the highest point or highest level in my career. And so I just appreciate that, because I believe when we are given these gifts, right, that they're not just for ourselves, right? And so I appreciate just you all and all that you all have contributed, all that you have endured to get to the point that you are. Please know that in this Women's History Month that we celebrate you all. Our students will watch this and see this at Rooted. They will celebrate you all. So thank you all so much just for your contribution, your selflessness, your ability, and just willingness to even just come on here tonight, this evening. And so thank you all to everyone who has watched. If you want to get a hold of our panelists, their information will be up there for you to get a hold of them. And thank you all and have a good evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.